Hey guys, Zach from the Rolling Times here, and I'm going to be showing you how to change a tube on a bicycle. The bike I have here is a standard quick release skewer with rim brakes, so this is probably the most common bike that I have to change a flat on. I know there's some variations. Some people have single speed bikes, some people have a bolt-on axle or a through axle. Some people have the disc brakes now, which are a lot more popular. And I can make another video on those bikes if you'd like, just let me know. But this is the most common bike that I run into. I'm going to show you how to change a flat on the rear tire, because if you can do the rear, you can do the front. The gears make it a little bit more complex, but the front tire just is a matter of undoing the brake. So I'm going to show you a side view here of how to take the wheel out, and then I'm going to show you from a top view as well. But the first step you want to do is put your bike in a stand. If you have a car rack at home, that could work as well. If you don't have a stand, you can do it putting the bike on the saddle and the bars upside down, but it does make it a little bit harder to see what you're doing, especially if you're unfamiliar with it. You could also have a friend hold the bike. If you're interested in a bike stand, Park Tool and Feedback Sports, they both make some nice home repair stands that fold up when you're not using them. You can take them with you up to the trail and everything, have them in the back of your car, but they range from about $100 to $200. So first thing we're going to want to do after we have the bike in the stand or somebody holding it for us, we're going to want to shift it down to the hardest gear in the back, or your smallest cog. So that'll be the one that's closest to the frame. Then we're going to want to undo the brake. So on a rim brake bike like this, you're just going to squeeze them together and pull the brake needle out, and I'll show you a top view of that, and it's a little bit easier. On a road bike, a lot of times the brakes have a little switch that you can open up the brake without completely undoing it. So now that we have the braking done and we have it in the hardest gear, your quick release skewer, you're just going to want to undo that, and a lot of times the wheel will slide right out. Sometimes you have to loosen a little bit more. Every bike's a little bit different. We're going to pull the derailleur back out of the way and then just kind of slide the wheel out. Most people don't have too much trouble getting the wheel out. It's getting the wheel back in. So now this bike doesn't have a flat tire, so I'm just going to let the air out of the tube. Alright, so once I get as much air as I can out of the tube, also sometimes if you have a slow leak and you're changing the tube, or you just have old tubes and you want to put new tubes in it, the easiest thing to do is let all the air out. Sometimes you'll have a little bit of air stuck in the tube still, so the more air you let out of the tube, the easier it is to get the tire off. Handy tool for taking the tire off is a tire lever. They come in all kinds of different shapes and sizes. This is just a quick stick tire lever. That's what we use most times in the shop. It works well on a wide variety of tires. Some of the road tires that are smaller, it's nice to have a thin road style tire lever. Some of your heavy downhill tire levers, you will bend this. So they actually, Pedro's makes a nice downhill tire lever that's full metal. So you can see here, you want to kind of bring the tire to the side, get your tool, and get it under that bead of the tire. Take that bead up over the rim, and then you're going to want to work it back and forth here a little bit. And go all the way around. If you're just changing the tube and not the tire, you don't have to take the whole tire off. Once you have one side of it off, you can pull the tube out. Some tubes have a lock ring on the valve, so you'll have to remove that to remove the tube. Now before I take this completely out, I'm going to take note of the orientation of the tube and the tire. Try and keep everything the same direction. So now, while keeping this the same direction, I would inflate this tube and find the hole. And it looks like I actually did manage to pinch it while I was removing it, which sometimes that happens, especially if you have an old tube that wants to stick to the tire. It does happen. You can try not to. If I can, I try not to use this tool and just do everything by hand. Some wheels and tires you can get away with it, some you can't, but you do risk a chance of pinching the tube when you're using one of these. But I would fill the tire up, find the leak, and then match it up on the wheel and tire so I can find out what caused the leak. Number one cause of flats is usually a pinch flat, which is caused by not keeping enough air in your tires or hitting something hard and the tire compresses and pinches the tube. Say number two cause would be getting something in the tire, such as a piece of glass or a small staple, a metal shard, or sometimes little gravel, bits of gravel or stone chips can get in the tire. And then I'd say the third most cause of flats would be there's a liner that goes over the rim to protect your tube from the spokes. Sometimes those go bad, and that can also cause a flat. So what you're looking for, usually if you have two little holes next to each other or the holes are on the side of the tube, that's going to be a pinch flat, so that's from not enough air in your tires. If the hole's on the underside of the tube, that's probably a rim strip. If the hole is on top of the tube, then there's probably something in your tire. So you want to be careful when you're doing this, but you can run your hand through the tire to try to feel for anything sharp. If there is something in there like a nail, you can catch your hand on that. So I usually don't start with that. I usually start by just visually looking in the tire and trying to find a hole and or something poking through. And like I said, if you find your hole in the tube and match it up, you can find about where that piece of metal or glass is going to be. So sometimes you won't come up with anything. Sometimes whatever went in and popped the tire has already came out of the tire. If you find a hole with nothing in it, then you're probably good. But it is kind of satisfying to find whatever it was in the tire, so you know you can pull it out and you won't get another flat again. Alright guys, I'm back with the new tube here. First step, when you have the new tube, before you put it in the tire, you actually want to put a little bit of air in the tube. So we're just looking enough to make it round. You don't want to expand the tube. You don't want to put too much in it or it'll make it harder to get in. But this way you can put the tube in, as I knock over a frame there. You can put the tube in and you can get it in the tire without pinching it. So we're going to want to find our valve hole in the wheel. Right there. Start with putting the valve through the valve hole. And this tire, it seems to sit in there pretty nicely, but sometimes you will have to kind of work it around. You just want to stuff it up in there. And I always start at the valve hole. Try and get a good view for you guys here. But you want to, that side, the bead of the tire that we took off with the tire lever, you're going to want to push that back over the rim. And hold it where you start, or it'll just work its way off and you'll just be chasing it around all day. But you just want to work that around. And as you get it in, you might have to stuff the tube in there a little bit more. It'll try and pop out on you. And now we're at the hard part. Some tires are a little bit harder, some are easier. But when you get to the end, sometimes this can be tricky. A lot of people will get their tire lever out to pop that last bit on. Sometimes you have to, but if at all possible, try and get it on by hand, because then you won't pinch the new tube. With the tire lever, you always have a chance of that. So now we have the tire, the new tube in there, the tire's on. We're going to slowly inflate it, make sure the bead sits nicely and even around the wheel. So at this point I only have 10 or 15 psi in the tire, and I just want to look around and follow the line along the tire and just make sure that's even all the way around. Make sure it's not bulging out or it's stuck down in. And this looks pretty even on both sides. So we're going to go ahead and inflate it to the maximum pressure, or whatever you'd like to ride at. So this is a 50 to 60 psi tire, so I just inflated the 50 psi. And of course I lost my valve cap. There she is. Quick tip on a quick release skewer, you don't have to take it all the way apart to get it out of the wheel, but if it would come apart, I'll just show you what order everything goes in. So here's your quick release skewer. You have your skewer with the lever on the end. You have one spring. That big side's going to go towards the outside, the small side's going to go towards the inside. Then you have your other spring, again small towards the inside, big towards the outside. And you have the other end of the skewer. And that's how it would go into your wheel. You do want the lever end of the skewer on the non-drive side, so opposite of the chain. Now we're going to go up from the bottom. You're going to put the bottom part of the chain around the bottom of the cassette where your gear's in the back. Pull the derailleur back as much as you can. And you're going to want to line the top part of the chain up on your smallest cog, because that's the one it was in when we took it out. And you should be able to go straight up. A lot of people get the chain on and then keep looking at the chain. Make sure you look at the axle and watch where the axle is going, because there's not a lot of room. It has to fit precisely into the dropouts. Or the other thing people do is they focus on the axle before they get the chain around on the right gear. And if it's on the wrong gear, the derailleur is going to try and pull the wheel crooked, so you're going to have a hang of a time trying to get the wheel in straight. Once the wheel's in, you're going to want to tighten up your quick release skewer. Best way to do that, just so you know you have it tight enough, I usually turn this side all the way in until it's snug with the lever open, and then back it off just a little bit, just enough so you can close your lever on the other side. As far as the brakes, we're going to want to squeeze them together and use our finger to push up the little clip that the noodle sits in. And I think the camera got a little blurry there, out of focus, but I am going to show you a top view of all that now. Alright guys, so this is the top view of taking the wheel out. Like I said, first things first, we're going to put the chain in the smallest cog, or the hardest gear. That should be, now every bike's different, some are 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 speed, but that'll be the highest number on your right hand shifter if your shifter has number indicators. So once we have that, we're going to go ahead and undo the brake, and this is going to be hard to do with one hand, so I'll just show you in steps here. Squeeze these together, and once you have them squeezed together, you can't see because my hand's in the way, this noodle clips into this little clip here. So once you have the brakes together, see if I can show you here, once you have the brakes together, with your other hand you'd be able to pull this noodle out of there, and then that will open up the brakes like I'll show you in just a second. Alright, so that's with the brake apart. It's hard to show you this process one-handed, so I apologize there. But usually getting it apart isn't any trouble. It's usually getting it back together is what everyone seems to have trouble with, and I have a tool that I can show you guys a little bit easier how to do that. But yeah, we have the brake undone. We have it in the smallest gear in the back. Now we're going to want to open up our quick release lever. In this bike, it's just going to want to drop right out. So it'll get hung up on the bottom chain there. Just move that out of the way. And there we go, it's out. I already showed you guys how to change the tire and the tube, so we're just going to put this right back in. And I am doing this one-handed, so stay with me here. We're going to want to take the bottom part of the chain, get rid of that, get it underneath there. Bring the derailleur back a little bit and line up the chain on that smallest or the outside gear. Then we want to go straight up. You can see the axle there. Also make sure your lever's open. It closed on me somehow. Straight up, make sure it's in there nice and even on both sides. And like I said, we're going to want to close this lever. That was probably a little on the loose side. You probably want it a little bit tighter than that. Too tight's better than too loose, but a lot of people end up tightening those things down way more than they have to. You shouldn't have to put a wrench on it to loosen it up or anything. But that's that, and then I'll show you guys how to hook up the brake. Since I don't have three hands, I used a quick grip to hold the brakes closed, so I can do this one-handed. And this is the part everyone seems to have trouble with. You just want to pop that noodle down in there and push it through like that. I mean, it's going to go there anyway. And you slide your boot back over and take the quick grip off. And there we go. Now the brake works. We got a new tube in there and you're all ready to ride. Hope you guys liked the video. If this helped you, please like and subscribe. If you have any other questions, comment below. Like I said, I'm willing to do this on a couple other bikes just to go through the different kinds of bikes. You have the single speed, you have the bolt-on wheels, you have the through axle wheels, and it is a little bit different with disc brakes. I find it's a little bit easier, but it is a little bit different. So if you guys need more info or more videos, just let me know. Thanks.